My name is Steve Miller. I welcome you all. My wife Pat and I are co-hosts of this webinar. I thank you all for registering and attending. All who registered are going to receive links to the recording and slides after this webinar. The webinars are all indexed in one file for almost 2.5 years. I'm going to put an index in chat in a few minutes for the benefit of you and also the latecomers. It's going to be about 600 documents. So, well, the index will be about 600 documents on about 60 topics in building electrification. And one special reference index will be to all of our webinar recordings and slides. So welcome to our Building Electrification series webinars. We are sponsored and hosted by New Jersey chapter of Sierra Club, and we have many other groups who contribute and support our programs. We have a core group of 8 people and an extended team of 80 more people, and are related to 20,000 Sierra Club members in New Jersey and thousands in other organizations. Pat and I are members of multiple organizations. So in our role right now, we're influencing 3 branches of New Jersey: the executive branch, regulatory, and the legislative branch. And the topics, for instance, the governor's executive orders. We're monitoring and influencing various bills introduced into the New Jersey Senate and Assembly, but we're paying special attention to the Board of Public Utilities, who's the kingpin of and has the most influence of all New Jersey agencies. And our topics are always related to building electrification. I'd like to introduce my wife, Pat, who's my right-hand woman for tonight and in my life as well. So Pat, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm just the person who monitors the chat. So I would ask everyone to mute yourselves. I think you're all muted. And if you have a question, please put it in the chat, and we'll wait till the end and take the questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Pat. So tonight, I'm very pleased to introduce a member of our team, Dr. Ernest Dorflinger. He's a physician scientist who spent his career in pharmaceutical research. He retired 10 years ago and began working on climate change issues. He's close to graduating from the electric coach training offered by Rewire America. He says he only has to finish his capstone project, and he will then be an advocate for our building electrification as a coach, available for you all if you have issues. Now, he loves going to school, and I can imagine from his background. And so he's going to start a second class to receive a second diploma. Mm-hmm. He's going to start training to be a heat pump coach, specializes, I guess, in heat pumps. And that's near and dear to our heart. And with a volunteer organization run by Heat Smart in Massachusetts. So, as your electrification coach, in the future at least, Ernie offers you tonight's slide deck on how to go about electrifying your home. So, Ernie, I'm turning it over to you.
Okay, I'm going to turn on my screen share. And yes, I had my first class today for the Heat Smart heat pump coach. So it actually seemed a little bit easier because I've just finished the other training. So I'm getting to know heat pumps pretty well. Okay, so I'm going to talk about electrifying residences in New Jersey. This is a New Jersey focused view. A lot of this became very topical with the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, and you'll hear a lot about that in this talk as well. Okay. I've given several presentations on this topic over the last year or so, and it's designed really for the average New Jersey homeowner, and it's designed to give them some information, not too deep, but some information, and then with that, some confidence that they could hopefully start to begin the process of electrifying their home. It is a process. It's not just a one-item thing. I also am a little bit concerned about whether there's more we could be doing to help ensure the success of residential electrification in New Jersey. I have some ideas, and I'm also interested in other people's thoughts, and I'm going to talk about that just with a few slides at the end of the presentation. Okay. First, about the Inflation Reduction Act was passed with a lot of fanfare and excitement. It's been a year and a half now, or even slightly over. And what it provides for home electrification is financial incentives in the form of tax credits and then rebates. The tax credits are available now. You can put them down on your 2023 taxes. I did some windows in 2023, and I'm getting the tax credit for those. Rebates aren't ready yet, however. The rebates are all administered by the state energy offices in New Jersey. That's our BPU. And New Jersey has to submit plans that need to be approved by the federal government before money can flow to residents for rebates. In giving this presentation, I started saying back in early 2023 that the rebates are coming. We'll expect them by mid 2023. And then a few months went by, and I had to change that to late 2023 and then early 2024. And well, we know it's not early 2024 either. So we'll talk later about when they might eventually show up here in New Jersey. The rebates, unlike the tax credits, where it doesn't matter what your income level, the rebates are for lower and moderate income homes. So up to 150% of the what's called the area median income. Another thing that's related to financial benefits for home electrification is in New Jersey, we're the BPU, as the state energy office, is working on what's called the second triennium energy efficiency programs, which will start in January 2025. And through word of mouth, we've gotten the hint that maybe the BPU is not moving forward as rapidly as some other states, is because for them, it will work more conveniently if they can coordinate the start of the IRA rebate programs with the rebates that will be in the triennium starting, the second triennium starting in January. And the next slide, I know Steve has looked at this, and I've taken a look as well. This is all the 7 utilities in New Jersey had to file plans with the BPU, proposed plans on their second triennium, and by the beginning of last December. And in these proposals, they have bumped up the proposed rebates from what existed before. If you look in the filing, it says that the current rebate for air source heat pumps is $1,000, and that's going up to could go up to $3,500. So it's quite a boost. And they do say that the current one is $1,000, but I've had trouble finding places that actually provide that level of rebates. But nevertheless, so coming in 2025, perhaps the air source heat pump rebate for New Jersey homeowners could be $3,500. Same thing for a ductless mini split and heat pump water heater, $2,500. So these look pretty generous, but they're just in a proposed plan for now. Okay, so now going back to sort of like the core of the presentation, this sort of lays it out. I begin with a few basic questions about home electrification, covering some of the basics for the sort of average homeowner in New Jersey. And then I will go through the main items that you might need to replace or update as part of your home electrification. And then I'll move into the more details about the financial support that can flow from the IRA. And then towards the end, I give examples of some families that have theoretical, hypothetical families that have undergone the process. And you can see what happens to the finances and the emissions. These are the questions I'm going to cover. What does it mean to electrify your home? What are the big users of fossil fuels in your home, our homes? If those appliances are to be replaced, what are they going to be replaced with? And then I step back a little bit and just briefly go through 3 reasons why you should want to electrify your home, which has to do with emissions, saving money on electric bills, and saving money on buying appliances. A little mention after that on if you're not ready to electrify, finances or most of your equipment is quite new, what else can you do to reduce emissions and perhaps save money on energy bills? And then a little bit about how you can work to make the home electrification process go more smoothly, because it can be a bit bumpy. So what does it mean? It means for the most part, replacing the gas and oil burning appliances within your home. If you have a furnace, a boiler, gas-fired hot water heater, or oil-fired gas clothes dryer, gas cooking, it's replacing these fossil fuel burning appliances. As you can see, it's illustrated cutely in that little house on there, where we're pumping these invisible pollutants out into the air. To put in these new appliances, your home may need electrical system updates. We'll talk about that. And if you've got the right roof and orientation and it's sturdy, we'll talk a little bit about rooftop solar and battery backup as a way of making your own electricity and storing it. So what are the big users in our homes? Because this data comes from New Jersey, from the federal government. So on the left, you can see for the year 2020, for the homes in New Jersey, you can see up top is space heating, which has the biggest bar by far, followed by water heating, and then much smaller numbers going down to the very last bar, which is all other. That's all the other like light bulbs, stereo systems, TVs, everything else. And you can see the top 2 bars, while not only being the largest, they're also almost entirely natural gas is supplying the energy. Very little electricity, a little bit of fuel oil. And then on the chart on the right, I condensed some of that data so you can see just specifically that space heating is over 2/3 of the energy use of our homes. Water heating is about 1/5 to 1/4, and the other 2 common items are cooking and clothes drying are relatively small at 10%. So if you're looking at decreasing emissions and you want to attack that in your home, the place to go is your space heating and then your water heating. So what kind of devices are going to go in to replace those things? Well, the big thing is heat pumps. There's a picture of a air source heat pump there that for heating the space within your home. There are heat pump water heaters becoming much more frequently available, and clothes drying as well. Heat pumps cannot provide enough heat for cooking, so the electrical use there is what we call electrical resistance heat, which is what a traditional electric stove is, and more recently induction electric stoves, which we'll talk about later, but I would imagine many of you or all of you have some familiarity with that already. Okay, now stepping back to the 3 main reasons, I mean, everybody understands this to some extent. It's to decrease harmful emissions, to save money on energy bills, and to spend less on new appliances. You can buy new electric appliances for less than replacing your gas appliances. So what are the harmful emissions? Sort of put them in two categories. Global warming gases, those are harmful by causing climate change. And CO2 is the biggest culprit, but more potent are methane and nitrous oxides. And methane is what our natural gas is. So when it leaks out, it's going up as a very potent greenhouse gas. And nitrous oxides are also not only toxic, but also very potent greenhouse gases. And there are others too, but these are the main three. But also, when we burn these fossil fuels, we create unhealthy pollutants that harm our health. And these are particulate matter, or for shorthand, it's small particulate matter. So PM 2.5, sometimes called, ozone, and nitrous oxides. So if you electrify your home, you're going to diminish the amount of these harmful gases and pollutants. Now, if you fully electrify your home, you will eliminate those emissions from your home, but you're using electricity probably from our grid, and our grid is not entirely clean. It's about 50% fossil fuel, 50% clean, including nuclear. But because of the efficiency of the heat pumps, what you're doing is when you switch over and still use grid energy, you're probably decreasing your emissions by about 75%. And that's only going to get better over time as the percentage of clean energy in our New Jersey grid goes up. Will you save money on your energy bills? Or I'll put it as I put it here, will I save a lot on heating bills if I switch now? Well, it depends. If you're burning oil or propane, yes, you probably will be saving a substantial amount of money. Even if you're using natural gas, you might save money if you happen to weatherize at the same time, which is a very common thing. When people are going to put in a new heating source, they will weatherize, and therefore their heating system doesn't need to be as large. And also, if you have put in a ground source heat pump, you will save on your heating bills. But in New Jersey, an efficient gas furnace and an air source heat pump might be pretty close in terms of the energy bills, especially in this PSE&G territory, which seems to provide a relatively low, comparatively low rate of natural gas. It's going to depend on what system you put in, whether you modify ducts or whether you go to ductless, but it will, I would say, there's not likely to be big energy savings today in New Jersey going to electric heat over natural gas heat. However, the cost of natural gas is expected to rise more quickly than electricity. So this balance becomes out of balance. I say more on the next slide here. So this information comes from a study done in 2022 by the BPU in New Jersey. They're concerned about what people are going to have to face in terms of utility costs in the future. So they commissioned this study just to look at what the predictions would be for the cost of electricity versus natural gas as heating fuels or energy sources in the future. And they looked out to 2030, and for what they were calling the average New Jersey home, if that average New Jersey home remained on gas heat in 2030 versus whether it switched to a heat pump. So because of the rise in price of gas being more quick than with electricity, that there is a substantial difference in their heating bills in 2030 from $1,600 per year down to closer to $1,000. And that seems, reading through the report, it seems to be due with probably the fixed costs of maintaining the pipeline systems for natural gas. It's shared among so many people right now. As fewer and fewer homes require natural gas hookups, those fixed costs are going to have to be spread over the remaining customers. And that probably accounts for some of this rise in gas being quicker than the rise in cost of electricity. Now, if you're not in need of the appliances to weatherize your home, what you can do to decrease your energy bills and decrease your emissions, because you're reducing your energy use, is weatherizing your home. And by that, we mean primarily increasing insulation. Older homes were built under prior codes. Current codes require more insulation. So if you were to move up your insulation to something approximating current codes, you would spend quite a bit less on the energy required to heat and cool your home. A typical home, whatever that is thought to save about 15 to 20% on their energy costs. And what they call leakier homes, I think the Acadia Center reported on this, and can save almost twice as much, maybe even up to 40%. And there are a lot of leaky older homes in New Jersey. So weatherizing itself can save money on energy bills, but there is a cost to getting it done, and that's going to vary depending on what kind of rebates and other resources are available. So weatherizing is something to not forget about. And I put in a heat pump system, and it can be a little time consuming. It's much easier if you've got a furnace and it goes. They find the current version of that furnace and they plop it in. They don't have to adjust too much. Maybe there's a little additional electronics involved, but it's not as complicated as moving to a heat pump. And I mean, it will get easier as heat pumps become more common, but right now there does seem to be, in many cases, a slower installation when it comes to a heat pump. This happened to my son during the cold snap last year. Their furnace went out, and we had the contractor in, and we said, "How about a heat pump?" And he said, "Well, a heat pump, maybe 2 weeks. I can have a furnace in tomorrow." So they put the furnace in. So, just one reason this can happen is you may need to change your electrical supply. We'll talk about that more, but you may need an electrician to come in to provide the power for the heat pump. And acquiring the heat pump sometimes takes a little bit longer. So that's what I say here is make a plan. So if you can avoid it, try to anticipate when your system's going out. Is it breaking, needing a lot of service? Is it very old? And even if you want to wait a little bit, it may be worth having someone come in and look at the system, give you an estimate on a new system. So at least you've got the jump on what you might want to do should your system go. So making a plan is a good thing to consider. So these are the items I'm going to go through rather quickly. I covered the weatherization already in that question 5. What can you do if you're not ready to electrify? And I'll go through these other items one by one, and they're sort of shown that that kind of very cute graphic there. So in order to power these appliances, you may need to have the supply of electrical energy to your house increased, which is a separate thing from needing to increase your circuit breaker box, or your electrical panel, as it's sometimes called. If you have a panel that has, say, 200 amps, you're probably fine. If it's less than that, you may need to have it updated. It's going to depend on things like whether you have an EV, whether you have a solar system, whether you're comfortable with switching from one item to another. So if you have a 100 amp panel, you might need to have some kind of a smart switch or something. So you need to give that some thought as to whether your panel may need to be increased. The heat pumps in general, except for maybe window heat pump units, they're usually 240 volts. So are most central air conditioning systems. So sometimes you don't need to update because you're putting a heat pump near where the central air was, so you're fine. But other times you may need to put in 240 volt circuits. That's also true for hot water heating heat pumps, except that they're now coming out with 120 volt versions of the heat pump. So it's becoming a little bit easier to update or electrify without making big changes in your electrical system, but sometimes it's necessary, and you need to look into that early on. And don't make a mistake like bumping up your panel by some small amount, then getting something installed and then finding out you need another bigger panel or a sub panel. Things to think about. A little bit about heat pumps. Electricity can create heat in two ways. It can sort of what we call directly, which is through what we call resistance heat, which is like your toaster. It's just a wire that by providing electrical resistance, the electricity turns into heat. And that's why the filament glows orange and gets hot and will burn you. That's resistance heat. That uses all the electricity going in to turns it into heat. Heat pump pumps heat. So, and the amount of electricity it uses is less than what the amount of electricity you would need to make that heat with resistance heat. They're about 3 to 5 times more efficient and getting better. New refrigerants, new electronics, heat pumps are continuing to improve year on year. So it's obvious why they're called heat pumps, because that's what they do. So in the winter, if you have a heat pump, it takes heat from a cooler area and pumps it into a warmer area. So in your house now, it may be 40 degrees outside. Your heat pump can actually extract heat from that 40-degree outside air and deposit it into your house. So, and it does that, as I said, its efficiency is about 3 to 5 times that of resistance heat, rather than having a little resistance heater sitting on your desk. That's going to require a multiple amount of electrical energy to provide the same amount of heat. The technology, a term you'll hear for these more modern heat pumps are variable speed heat pumps, or you'll hear inverter technology. I can't even speak to those in great detail, but those are the things, the words you look for. How well do they work? Well, one example is the Mitsubishi H2i hyperheat system, and they're almost fully efficient. They're as efficient in providing heat at 0 degrees as they are at 50 degrees. But those are cold climate heat pumps. Not all heat pumps are created equal. And there's a big effort now going on, and there's actually a challenge that the Energy Department is running for companies to create much more effective cold climate heat pumps. But they're out there now. They do exist. You can see the numbers there for the Nordic countries. They're putting in heat pumps like crazy. They're happy. Maine is very happy. They have a lot of heating oil up there, so it's very expensive. So the state chose to support this transfer to heat pumps, and it's been happening well ahead of schedule. So cold climate heat pumps are real. And New Jersey, if you have a cold climate heat pump, that's all you really need. Heat pump water heaters, similarly, I mean, you can buy an electric resistance water heater, but it's going to use 3 to 5 times as much electricity as your heat pump water heater. And as I mentioned earlier, 120 volt versions are now becoming available. I think there are 2 on the market, a third to come soon. They're going to get better too. There's a lot of competition in this area. A couple things to keep in mind, and homeowners to keep in mind, is that if you put it takes the heat out of the air around the hot water heater. So the area around in the region of the heat pump water heater can get cool. So people need to be aware of that. And it will need a condensation drain, something you don't need with your gas-fired water heater. It's not a big deal, but you've got to have a place for that water to run off. So new technology, there's just often a new twist. Heat pump clothes dryers, basically the same story. They may take a little longer to dry. They will need a condensation drain. Not a big deal. It's next to your washing machine. And other than heat pump clothes dryers, what they call a condensing dryer is also a good alternative. Just uses electricity and takes a little bit longer, and but still is a reasonable thing to consider. Cooking. Obviously, if you're not burning gas at your stove, you're not creating harmful indoor air pollution. The resistance heat ovens, the old traditional electric ovens, you know those, they get stuff burnt on them. It's hard to get off. They discolor. You can burn your fingers. They don't respond very quickly. They work, people have them, they adjust, but the induction burners are much better. They are probably as nimble and quick and precise and fast as any gas stove, and they don't get hot. So all the heat, it's a magnetic field that makes the heat show up in the pan and not on the top of the stove, so it never gets hot. Rooftop solar. I don't have it. I got too much shade. I know plenty of people who have it, love it. But you do have to have the right roof. You do have to be concerned about the sturdiness and how the age of your roof. But if your system, if it works for you, this can be a great thing. And also, if you're going to put in solar, consider battery backup. It can be expensive, but it's coming down. So those are ways to not only electrify your home, but make electricity at your home and use that electricity. And ground source heat pumps is the same concept for moving heat from one place to another. But instead of taking it out of the air outside of your home, it takes it out of the ground. And it's a big investment. It's a lot of work. There's two main ways it can be done, which is deep loops going down 200 or 300 feet. You can see those pipes going way down, or you can do sort of a subsurface route where it might be buried by 6 feet, but then you need a fairly large surface area that's usually quite a bit larger than the footprint of your home. So this is not going to work for a lot of people, but they are very efficient. And if you have the time and the patience and interest, this is something to think about. The rebates do kick in. Some of the rebates are quite generous for these, but you will need them. Okay, now the IRA. This again, a little over a year and a half ago, it provides tax credits, and those are available now. There's the capped type, which are the 25C, and I'll show you in the table later what those apply to. And then there's the uncapped, where it's a straight 30% no matter what your cost is. And you can also carry that credit over from one tax year to another if you need to. And these tax credits, if you do get a rebate, you can still take the tax credit on the amount that you still have to pay after the rebate. So you can, what they call, stack these incentives. Now the rebates, home energy rebates, there's two types. The homes or the home efficiency rebate. I say they're in effect now, and they did issue a clarification that says that theoretically they went into effect the day the IRA was passed into law, but I don't think you'd find, but it has to meet all the criteria of the ultimate approved plan. So you take a gamble that if you do something this now, it's going to meet the plan that eventually gets approved by the federal government, this New Jersey state plan. So I say it's in effect, but I don't think people are going to be taking much advantage of it yet. And the other category is the home electrification and appliance rebate. And those are not available. Those won't be available until the Department of Energy approves New Jersey's program. So a little more details on each of those categories. The homes are now they're switching their language to calling it the HER, for the home efficiency rebate. This is a whole home energy retrofit. So it's sort of a big time weatherization. So it's targeted to reducing the home energy use. So weatherization with adding insulation and doing air sealing to avoid air leaking in and out, air pathways which you lose heat or cooling. But it may apply to if someone unfortunately had a system like an electric baseboard, a very inefficient system that the HER rebates may apply to replacing that kind of a heat system. But mostly it's targeted at energy efficiency retrofits, insulation type work. It has two categories for level of energy savings and two categories of incomes. You can see in the table there. So if you can get more than 35% reduction in energy, then the rebates are higher, up to $8,000 for low income. And it does not have an income cap. So the lower income gets sort of double the rebate, and then any income above that gets the lower level of rebate. To qualify for the low income, for a family of 4 in New Jersey, that's going to be a household income of about $95,000. So these are the HERA or HERE rebates. These are mostly on discounts on or rebates on single items, a heat pump, electric stove, induction stove, electrical panel. These are limited. They're only available up to 150% of the area median income, and that's about $178,000 for a family of 4. It's higher for bigger families. And it's only available if you're replacing a fossil fuel appliance. So you can't replace your resistance stove with an induction stove. It has to go from gas stove to some kind of electric stove. When will these be available? Don't know yet. These are just some numbers in case people were interested. You can see these are the area median incomes for what's called the New Jersey Metro, which covers most of North Jersey, I think. And so if we look at the median income, family of 4, that 80% threshold, as I said, is about 95,000. And then the mid-level income category is up to almost 180,000. And it's up over 225,000 or something like that for a large family of 8. So it does have a sliding scale. This shows you some of the complications or how complicated some of the rebates can seem. So I've tried to show, I'm not showing any of the home efficiency rebate here. This is just I'm not showing those. This is just the HERA or HERE rebates. So you can see, and the tax credits. So you can see on the left, the HERA, so the low income, less than 80% median income, and then the moderate income in green. And you can see for the low income, up to the cap, they get 100% rebate. And the cap is as high as $8,000 for a heat pump. Over that $8,000, then they're paying dollar for dollar. Whereas in the moderate income, they're getting 50% up to $8,000. So they could get a $16,000 heat pump for $8,000. If your income's above 150, no rebates. The other fairly generous one is electrical panel. Now you can get up to $4,000 on those. And I didn't insert the numbers here, but you can, if you remember from the earlier slide, that New Jersey, starting next year, might be providing $3,500 for heat pumps. And there's no mention in the documents as to whether this is going to be restricted by income or not. It hasn't been in the past, so maybe it will not be in the future. But so that may be an extra fairly substantial rebate amount for heat pumps. Tax credits, you can see that they're all 30%. The blue ones are the ones that have caps. The sort of the yellow ones do not. So if you put in solar or a ground source heat pump and it costs you $30,000, you will get $10,000 tax credit. And if you can't take that tax credit in 1 year, you can carry it over until you use it all up. With the blue ones, you can see the caps. The weatherization includes things like windows and doors, and that's where I got my tax credit for 2023. $1,200 tax credit for, I had some insulation put in and a couple of windows. So it was nice. Didn't cover the cost, but it's nice. Okay. Rewiring America is a great site. If you want to explore some of these numbers yourself, you can go there, put in your zip code, put in your tax filing status, household size, and approximate income, and it'll tell you what level of rebates you may qualify for. The next few slides show a couple of hypothetical families. I pulled this. These are close to the families that are in the Rewiring America materials. And this first family is a low-income family, and you can see in 2024, they put in, they replaced their gas range with an electric one. They needed their electrical panel doubled. Then in 2025, they changed to a heat pump water heater. Then they did some weatherization and changed their gas furnace to a central heat pump and changed their clothes dryer. And at the bottom, you can see that the emissions are in red. These are approximations, of course. They go down to 0 from the house by 2026. And the blue is taking into account the energy savings on energy costs, as I showed you in those New Jersey data from the ratepayer survey done by the DEA, the BPU. And you could see for the low-income family, these are rather modest costs for some of the replacements, but they're getting almost everything covered in the low-income category. And if you go to a moderate income category, you can see, I didn't put the graphs in here, but you can see that they're still only paying about 40% of the actual costs because of the combination of rebates and tax credits. So you can see for the gas furnace in 2027, the furnace replacement by heat pump, $12,000 heat pump, they get $6,000 rebate, they get $1,800 tax credit. So that $12,000 heat pump could cost them $4,200. I'm going to skip this one. It's fun to talk about, but we don't have time. And then there's the upper income family, where of course they don't get any rebates. So the only money that they're saving is up to 30% on tax credits. So they're paying about 81% of the total cost in this particular example. But again, seeing that the emissions go down and the energy savings go up. I assume the annual energy use was about twice for this family. So this is one reason why their energy savings seem higher, because they have a bigger home, use more energy. So this is an example of some families that, hypothetical families, taking advantage of the electrifying their homes. So I mentioned the third reason for electrifying, and that is that for many people, particularly for non-high income people, they may be able to put in brand new electric appliances for less than replacing their gas appliances because of these rebates. There's one kind of a difficult point right now in electrifying your home is if you have baseboard hot water with a boiler system. That gets a little bit trickier because there's no heat pump, no adequate current heat pump system that you can put in to make that kind of a hot water system. So that can is one situation that can get a little bit more complicated, but I'm not going to go into that right now. And then, yes, as I already mentioned, that the higher income families, they will be paying the bulk of. I'm just considering the IRA now. I did not wrap into those hypothetical cases the potential New Jersey rebates. Those could actually switch the situation. So even in this higher income group, they may actually may cost less to put in new electric appliances than replacing it with gas appliances. But we still don't know the final New Jersey rebates and any rules that will apply. But so it's possible that even higher income families will save. Where can you start? A home energy audit's a great place. They'll tell you whether you need to weatherize. Do you need insulation? Do you need air sealing? They can advise you on your heating system, whether it's on its last legs or not, and give you some advice as to what kind of replacements. They can test the leakiness of your home using something called a blower door test. And that will help you decide whether you, how aggressive perhaps to do the air sealing in your home. And as I mentioned earlier, start thinking about this, start making a plan, thinking about timing, what comes first, electrical panel, hot water. Think about the rebates, keep an eye on where your income is relative to what's available. So you want to do it right. You don't want to jump into something, do it, and then come back and say, I wish I had done this a little bit more carefully. These are some good references. The one I like best is what's called Electrify Everything from Rewiring America. It's 106 pages, but it's more like a pamphlet. It's few words and nice pictures, and but it talks about how to find a contractor. It's very handy. Also from Rewiring America, they have something called the Guide to the Inflation Reduction Act, and that's very helpful as well. And another one is the Pocket Guide from Redwood Energy. You can Google those and you can pick those up. Okay, now this is back to my, how do we, as a state, electrify our homes? I think the first part is obvious. To decarbonize our home, we need to stop burning fossil fuels, use electricity instead with heat pumps in general. We need to continue to decarbonize our grid, and weatherizing our homes to decrease demand in energy are 4 key components to decarbonize. What policies exist that are going to help drive this? Well, the financial incentives, that's one of the main reasons we're talking about this, is because the IRA. If there were no IRA, we wouldn't be talking about this nearly as much. So these are the financial incentives of tax credits and rebates, and perhaps nice rebates from New Jersey utilities as well. Another set of policies that could drive this would be rules and regulations, like you can't put another furnace in, you have to put in a heat pump, or you can't have a new gas hookup. And I don't think that's going to be politically very popular, but that would be a way that would work. But it just doesn't seem very likely to me. And as a member of CCL, we've been advocating for a carbon fee and dividend program for many years, but so far we haven't gotten enough political support for that. But that would be another policy that could drive a transformation, but it's really not happening yet, and may never. But okay, so what you heard my talk. You have some sense of what this is, so it's a complicated process. I've attended these monthly conferences, and we've heard several times where people had multiple contractors come in, and every single proposal was very different. They were very hard to compare. Different types of heat pumps. Some will come back with boilers or furnaces, or inefficient heat pumps. So it's difficult right from the contractor proposals. And it may involve more than one contractor. You may have to coordinate. You may have to be the go-between. So it can take a lot of effort on your own part. It can be difficult to decide on the sequence, what's first, what's second, and so forth. And contractors may push their favored systems and products. And so you may say you want a cold climate heat pump, and they come in and try to convince you of something else. So it can be complicated. And then the financial incentives are complicated. The tax credits are complicated. I had a pretty hard time finding out what kind of windows would get me the tax credit. And I challenge you to try to find out. It's amazingly difficult. So the tax credits can be complicated. Making sure you meet the CEE criteria or the Energy Star criteria. It's complicated. I didn't even talk about that earlier, but those are difficult as well. And we don't know whether there's going to be some restrictions on the New Jersey rebates as come out next year. So this is my stab at how we might define or think about a successful home decarbonization, and that would be to quickly reach and maintain a high percentage of all new heating systems, space and water, to be heat pumps, preferably without fossil fuel backup. And then will the policies that I mentioned a couple slides ago of rebates, tax credits, rules and regulations be enough to achieve a successful high percentage of all new systems being electrified? That's a question. And I mentioned here also that the regulations, I think that's politically, that would be a difficult way for the process to go. For this success to happen, I think we're going to need a very pleased set of homeowners who undergo this process. They're going to need to be happy with the results of their electrification, particularly over a heating and cooling season. There may be things that they become unhappy about after using it for a while. And I'm trying to think about how we can, how homeowner satisfaction can be influenced. I mean, right now they're influenced heavily by the HV contractors. And I have some questions about the current pool. I mean, it'll improve, but the current pool, is it going to lead to a high percentage of long-time satisfied customers? I mean, if they get to the right contractor, sometimes we've heard these on these webinars too, that they finally found the right contractor. What about the people who never found the right contractor? They don't come on these webinars. Also, the state agencies are going to be very important. They're carrying out the IRA, and they're creating the rules for the utilities too. And New Jersey is a little bit of a laggard compared to other states like Maine and California and New York, Massachusetts, and Vermont. So we should think about ways we might want to make sure that this improves. And in the short run, next year, the year after, is the contractor pool and the state support going to improve quickly enough to have a successful rollout of home electrification? So this is just like, I threw this out as where I'm thinking, what can we do to help improve the situation? And can we lobby for New Jersey programs to provide a high level of homeowner support, guidebooks, helplines, etc. And as Steve mentioned in the beginning, I've been trained as an electric coach and being trained as a heat pump coach. I think that can help, but you're going to need a lot of electric coaches and heat pump coaches to start to cover it. If 10% of the homes in New Jersey start converting, or 5% start converting a year, that's going to be a big demand. And so that, I just wanted to get out some thoughts in this forum about what we could think about doing to help this important process of electrifying our homes. And with that, I'm done.
Great. Thank you so much, Ernie. That was really a lot of information.
You're welcome.
And there are really a lot of questions too. So let me just start. Well, from the beginning, Mary asked about what is a medium income home, and you later showed a chart of that.
Right.
So that is something, if you didn't catch it, you can.
Yeah, it'll be in the slides, and it does depend on your family size. But I think medium income was up to about 175, and the low income was about 95, something like that. It's pretty high because we're a high income area.
Okay. Oh, I know, Ernie, you had a chart of what the existing rebates are, but they do vary by utility. And this person says another Mary says that she received only $600 for her
Yeah,
rebate for the
I
heat
know.
pump from PSE&G,
Yep.
and that's accurate because PSE&G has smaller rebates than some of the others.
That's exactly right.
I know JCP&L is a little bit higher than PSE&G right now.
Yeah, I got 800. So, and I never actually found out how they came up with the 800. I didn't work too hard on it, but it's just not that easy to find these, you know, where these rebates come from.
Yeah. And I think Steve already answered this question. Steve, I know I saw that you were putting some answers in the chat. So if I ask a question that you've already answered, then let us know. But this one is from Nadine and said, would a consumer be eligible for both New Jersey and federal rebates? And the answer is yes, whatever is available at the time you can be stacked.
That's my understanding too.
The answer for next year as well is yes, things will be able to be stacked with the IRA.
Yeah, and there are, as we already talked about, some of these programs do have New Jersey counterparts right now, like the homes rebate program, and that will turn into the IRA. So
Right.
they're supposed to be adding the amount that New Jersey gives to the amount that the IRA makes available, but we'll have to see about that, how that works. And I think we kind of touched on this too. In Massachusetts, the rebate for heat pumps is $10,000 to $16,000, and yes, Massachusetts is quite a lot more generous
Yeah.
than New Jersey, and more generous probably than the IRA is going to be too.
Yeah, California, parts of California, they rebates are much bigger in some certain places. Yeah.
Okay, Karen says I had solar installed. I indicated on my filings I'm somewhat restricted. The tax credit was rolled over to 2025. Yeah, the tax credit can only be as much, I mean, what you can receive in any one year can only be as much as the tax that you have to pay. And otherwise it is rolled over, so you'll get it eventually.
All right. It's like capital losses. You can only take so much a year and then you just eventually use them up.
Yeah. May says the town of Kearney has rebates and money for homeowners that need updated electric roofs insulation. That's really great for Kearney. I don't think most places do that. And Steve put in a couple of references for his, or links to his references. Mary asks, oh, the acronym PAH, what does that stand for?
Trying to remember. I don't remember which slide it was on.
Polyaromatic hydrocarbon.
PAH.
Oh, that was probably in the clouds. Yes. That sounds right.
Okay. Did you hear that, or do you need it to be repeated?
No, I got it. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. Is it possible newer federal rebates, IRA rebates, will be retroactive? I
No.
did receive a tax credit. They haven't defined the programs, and so the programs are really not going to start until
It's my
next year.
understanding that's right. No rebates until your state has the approved program. So don't install it and expect to get a rebate. they're not going to do that.
Okay. Mark asks, I understand this is addressing existing homes. What's being done about rebates for new construction? And Steve started to answer that, I believe. Was that the
Yes, there was a
question you were
press
answering?
release with the rebates actually spelled out for new construction. So the link shows that table of amount of money for different types of houses, like single family houses versus townhouses versus multifamily. It's spelled out in that press release. I don't think it's effective right now. The BPU has asked for comments and inputs. The deadline is next Wednesday, the 27th. So sometime after that, they'll integrate all the material and make it real. I don't know the date.
Yeah, and there are going to be incentives that I think are paid to the builder or perhaps the homeowner. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but it's a totally different program from either one of these. Let's see. Jim says, I had a thought while you were speaking. When I went to HVAC school, I think we probably spent about 2 or 3 months just covering the International Fuel Gas Code for safety. What I don't recall is ever covering anything on the heat pump code. Um, that's the energy code, I guess, now that, or the energy part of the building code. What is the heat pump code for safety? I'm not sure anyone here knows anything about that.
If somebody can dig that up, I would be interested personally. So if you find a code, let me know. I will read it.
The
But they,
they're going to outlaw starting in 2025. You can no longer use R410A in a new system. I understand, and they're moving to refrigerants that are A2L, I think, and they are slightly flammable, as opposed to the current ones that are not considered flammable. So there may be some safety code coming out as they move to the newer refrigerants in heat pumps.
What we really need is propane as a refrigerant. It's common in Europe and banned in the United States in heat pumps.
Because
Hopefully,
it'll get hot, which is nice. Yeah.
oh, yeah, it'll be better performing, and
Yeah.
hopefully U.S. regulators allow it to be. More likely, I think, in air to water heat pumps. So because that will be self-contained in a small area in the outside unit.
Right.
And there was a question about
that
heat
could be
pumps.
for those
there
people
was a
with
question
boilers
right
right now.
now.
Yeah, boilers.
Sorry. About, please discuss air to water heat pumps, which which are the hot water heaters.
I'll let Steve take that one.
I know some. First of all, there are heat pumps available for standard heating with like for floor heating, baseboard heaters, as long as the temperature is not too hot, like I think even up to 130 degrees. But the 170-degree radiators are you cannot get heat pumps for those. What they'll do is give you a kludge, what I call a kludge, which will be two in tandem, basically, to boost the temperature up. However, if we can get the CO2-based heat pumps from Europe and get them approved here, then that will take you up to 170. So people who have hot water steam radiators, wait for a year or two for new models to come out.
Yeah.
Okay, and Paul says, I'm spreading out my electrification over a few years to spread out my federal tax credits. That's a good idea, because you can, the tax credits, you can do new tax credits every year if you make upgrades every year.
Right. Yep. You can put in a heat pump every year. Hot water heat pump, one ductless in one part of the house, another ductless. Every year you get $2,000 tax credit.
Okay.
In the question of online planners and try to maximize your rebates, there is one site, I put it in the chat. That would be before this webinar closes, click on the triple dots in the bottom of chat and save it to your PC. Or wait for what I pass out. I'll distribute recording slides and Q&A.
Okay. Steve says new construction in New Jersey will have incentives if they comply with high efficiency requirements such as LEED, Energy Star, Passive House, and so on. For a table that he saw in New Jersey Clean Energy press release, and there's a link to that here. So do what Steve said and you'll get all the links. Mark has a comment that transfer switches are not UL labeled for existing electrical panels.
I think he's relating to share loads. There are external adapters you can use to share loads from the panel. So if your panel's overloaded or you have no more room in it, there are adapters that will share the load. And some of the documents we're talking about actually have links, like the Redwood series of documents have a big section on how to keep from having to upgrade your panel by doing all these extra things in the panel. Actually, outside of the panel. I could put that in chat as well.
I
I'll
think
find
they
that
call it
document.
the Watt diet.
Yeah, Watt diet.
WAT
Yes,
diet.
and it's
Yeah.
part of that big document that that Ernie you talked about.
Yeah.
From Redwood.
Yep.
Redwood.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is an area that's very active right now, developing the electronics to do this kind of stuff. So
Nadine says, I found that HVAC contractors in New Jersey are not very familiar with heat pumps.
yeah.
Yeah, we've found that too. How do you find contractors that are knowledgeable about cold weather heat pumps and heat pump water heaters?
I put in chat my recommendations of how to find that HVAC vendor and follow my link. One of my best sources, if you identify the best models or the best manufacturers, you go to the manufacturer site and like Mitsubishi, for instance, website, and they'll give you rank ordered for your zip code of at least 3 different classes of HVAC vendors. You choose the vendor that is more like the blacklisted guy, the elite.
Right.
Choose the zip code, the person closest to you, and that's your guy for your area. But you should get 2 or 3 quotes for anything.
Yeah.
Then go to Fujitsu, and then go to Daikin. Those are probably the best 3, but there are others as well. But
Yeah,
follow my website, and it'll give you the directions.
Yeah, within the IRA, there's the material they give to the state to tell them how to fill out the plan to file with back to the Department of Energy. Talks about how they have to have an approved contractor list and put together training programs. So hopefully they will do this aggressively, like some other states do. They have very relatively restricted lists of qualified contractors. So that's something that the state could provide if they want to.
Yeah, but we've been having conversations trying to get some sort of list going of approved vendors, and it's a hard road because the BPU doesn't believe we need it.
Yeah.
They're happy with the vendors that are on the vendors list right now. Well, I don't agree with that, and other people don't agree with that.
Right.
So we're going to continue to apply pressure.
Right.
What we want is a cold climate heat pump vendor list.
Mark has a comment, heat pump hot water heaters need a minimum square feet of 8 square feet.
Yeah, I forget what
Is
it is.
is
Yeah,
that four times two? Um, we we have found, and I know there are rules about this, but you can put a heat pump into a closet as long as it fits in the closet with all its plumbing and such, as long as the closet has louvered doors.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
So
the one we know about is our daughter's. We put a heat pump into the water heater into the furnace room, which is small, but it has two doors in front, two louvered doors. And that seems to be enough. I know there's a comment here that one door is not enough. Well, that may be true for really small. But in her case, it's a closet, double door closet. Seems to work fine.
Yeah. It's a good point, though, that people need to know about this if they're going to look for heat pump hot water heaters. They don't want them to find out at the last minute that they had to put it somewhere else. So
The other thing to worry about is the noise from it. The Ream hot water um, heaters, the heat pump versions, are pretty noisy. You can get A.O. Smith, which are about 20 dB lower level. It's a whisper versus a shout
Hmm.
level. But the A.O. Smith early models have appears to be infant mortality problems. I would wait
Hmm.
a year or two for those to get out of the supply chain, so you get good A.O. Smith products.
yeah.
Steve says he put a link to a summary of all rebates and tax credits in the chat. So again, if you want to look at that, then copy the chat. Okay. All right. Paul says net metering will make the installation of solar less expensive, helps support the grid on hot days. Well,
Complicated. Look at California.
well, net metering is going to be helpful for, well, we need our grid to be modernized, and net metering is part of modernizing it. So we
One of our
definitely
jobs,
need.
if people would like to join us, one of our jobs is to lobby the legislature to get a grid modernization bill passed.
Mhm.
Okay. And Steve put a link for recommendations on how to select heat pump contractors. Mary says PSE&G installed my cold climate heat pump. Technician was excellent. That's great. At this time, they only install Fujitsu. That's
Mhm.
PSE&G. Have not. A lot of contractors only have one or two brands that they specialize in. So if you want different bids from different manufacturers, you probably need to go to different contractors, and you should probably get competing bids anyway.
Yeah.
She says with the Fujitsu cold climate, she's not needed supplementary heat and heaters in a closet with louvered doors. Comes up to temperature more rapidly than my former gas heater. That sounds
Good.
great.
That's what we need. Yeah,
Yeah,
we need happy homeowners talking about it.
yeah, we need a testimonial from this person. So Steve, check it out when you work on this. Let's see.
There will be an advertising campaign, by the way, in
Mhm.
about 2 months. And so we were looking for happy heat pump customers. So
Yeah.
if you're happy heat pump
If you
customer,
volunteer,
we
Right.
would like to put you on the airwaves and the video if you're willing to do that. Otherwise, in writing is fine too.
I'm laughing because Kathy asked the question, if the administration changes in the presidential election, do you think these incentives will still be available? I'm not going to say what I'm thinking.
I'm saying you better vote the way you want it to occur.
That's right.
Vote the way you
vote,
want to
vote.
see things. Tracy says, we had an energy audit and weatherized about 11 years ago, but now it feels drafty again. Does weatherization have to be redone regularly?
You know, something movable like doors or windows is what I'd say is suspect. I look really closely. You might have weather stripping problems around movable things.
And if they put in cellulose, blown in cellulose in the attic, sometimes it settles and you might need to add back a couple inches.
Yeah.
But
If
it
it's been
wouldn't,
11 years, it's probably worthwhile getting an energy audit.
sure.
Anyway, if you have if you think you have problems, the energy audits are not very expensive, and it
No.
may be something that you can even do on your own.
Yeah, you can get $99 specials that you actually get refunded if you buy their services. So even $49 specials for energy audit. And what you want is a big audit, 2 hours with a blower door test.
Yep.
Okay. Steve put a note about rewiring America, which Ernie already took care of, I think. Another question about heat pumps to replace boilers. I think Steve probably said just about as much as he knows about that. Heat pump, can they integrate with existing ducts?
Yes. I mean, they do need to be looked at, but in many cases, they can just use the existing ducts. Once in a while, the ducts may be judged to be inadequate, may need to be enlarged, but in in our case, the ducts were adequate size, and I don't see that happening very often, but should be looked at. Probably going to be okay, but need to be sure.
In my daughter's case, the ducts are buried in the concrete slab, and they're pretty tiny, like 4 inches, it looks like. So that's not very high diameter. And I'm afraid that the ducts will not be usable for a heat pump.
Mm.
The reason is heat pumps are lower temperature and you need more air
Right.
to get the BTUs out to the rooms.
That's right. But they
Okay.
do blow more,
Oh.
they blow more frequently too. So it's sort of a trade-off. You need to blow more air, but they're doing it over a longer time. So
The HUD, this is a comment from Jim. The HUD guidelines for income are different in every county. They may be, but there are not very many regions in New Jersey that are different. All the counties we have looked at in Central Jersey have the same rebates. I mean, have the same income levels.
yeah, that's what I saw. I struggled to find this, but I thought I had found the right place. And what it called it for our area was the Newark metro area, which basically covered a big chunk of New Jersey. And so I thought it was going to be by county or town or something, but that's what I came up with. But it's a good example of how it can get complicated.
Oh, I meant to mention this at 8:15. We are at time, and as long as Ernie is willing, we're willing to stay, as long as people want to stay. But if you want to leave, then feel perfectly free to do
Could
so.
I put in a plug here for my next
Oh,
webinar?
yeah, why don't you
Oh,
do that?
be sure to tune in for Thursday, April 18th. We have a very popular speaker, Matt Kavanaugh,
Oh yeah.
and he has some new things he wants to tell us. He actually is a professional electrification planner. He'll create a plan for you, and then he'll help map it out for you and make it happen. So he's a good guy to know. I think his fees start at $200, which is very reasonable. So tune in April 18th. You'll see the announcements coming out in the next couple of weeks.
I just noticed that we had someone in the waiting room.
Oh.
I admitted Joanne. I don't know how long she's been there.
Oh, gee, I'm sorry.
Okay. May asks, what do you mean by stacked? And that's just that if there's more than one program that covers whatever parts of these programs that you've added, you can get money from each of them, not this. You get up to the limit from each one of them.
In this,
Hi,
in
Pat,
this,
it's Joanne.
Oh,
Hi.
welcome. We're
I
sorry.
just noticed, I don't know how long you've been in the waiting
The whole
room.
thing. That's okay. I'll watch
Oh.
it on recording.
Oh my goodness.
It's Myrtle. How is she communicating back with her accomplice?
Well, get your skates on.
Okay, let's see.
He's already been in transit.
Joanne, you need to mute.
He's a visitor, and that's under supervision.
they may call it stacked because the order becomes important. I think you have to take the rebate and then the tax credit. You can't take the tax credit and then the rebate, something like that. So.
Okay. Let's see. I think I got out of order here. Do you know if newer heat pumps will be designed to utilize smart thermostats? Well, ours plugged right into our Nest. So,
They will.
yes. How much can these heat pump projects cost without rebates?
Yeah, I can get some numbers, but I'm not sure how accurate I am. I think you can actually, Rewiring America has tried to take a stab at this, but I think for a ductless system, so where you're putting something in the wall and probably 5 to 10,000, maybe closer to 5. But if you're replacing a furnace for a centralized system and not doing much with the duct work, it's going to be maybe 15 to 20. That would be my ballpark.
Or a year ago, I guess, I installed a Mitsubishi mini split in my daughter's house for heating a big playroom. It cost $7,000 from Princeton Air for a 1-ton mini split for a big room.
Yeah.
But that's a small mini split. Jim comments that A2L is propane. Yes, I believe I've heard that too.
I'm not sure about that. I think A2L is a category, not a particular chemical.
I had air conditioning installed, and the refrigerant you just mentioned was already outlawed for new air conditioners. That was 15 years ago. I think they're going to change.
R410A? No, that's not true. He's talking about Freon.
Well, the one, Steve, you probably know this. The one that's in use in Europe now is not yet in use here, I believe.
Yeah, the propane, and I don't know the number on it, but it's some 290 or something.
Yeah, I think it might be 290. That rings a bell.
Oh, Jim says the A2L refrigerant is to be phased in starting in 2025.
Right. I
could believe that.
Yeah, there's more than one. That's a category. The R25, I think, is one of the. There's also a 454 or something like that. So it's sort of like a minor flammability category or something like that.
Okay. Jim gives an example that he says it is a link to this. This is an amazing example of what is possible with air-to-water heat pump. The refrigerant is high-pressure carbon dioxide.
Yeah. Yeah, CO2 will do it.
And
Natural CO2 can do good things too.
he gives a link.
CO2 is really marvelous. It's high efficiency, but it's high pressure and you need special fittings and special piping. So it's a different, higher price technology.
Hmm. Right.
Brian says, very reasonable heat pumps are brands ACIQ, made by Medea, and Mr. Cool Universal, made by GREE, Gree,
Mhm.
or TOSOT, TOSOT, made by GREE. So those are just examples that he knows of.
If you're handy, you can buy these at Home Depot and put them in yourself.
In the next few webinars, I'll be inviting do-it-yourselfers. It's a really real thing you can do. And electricity, you need to have a licensed electrician, but for other things you don't. And there are many people who do their own.
Do you recommend getting a home energy audit before doing a heat pump? Absolutely.
However, if you have an emergency,
Yeah,
your furnace is on the kaput like this week, you're going to want a replacement mighty fast.
but it would be a good idea to get the home energy audit now
It would be good.
before that happens.
It's part of planning, I think. So yeah.
Plan to, yeah, plan to do it first while you're happy.
All right. FYI, very few manufacturers are currently making cold climate heat pumps. Mitsubishi is #1 in my book, and I know there are others. Steve, I think you just mentioned 2 or 3 of them, didn't you?
Mhm.
Yes, the ones I mentioned were Mitsubishi, Fujitsu, and Daikin. And I think there might be others. And
LG, I know. It
there's
does
a lot
too.
of
Yeah.
federal government money going into manufacturing plants for air conditioning, for heat pumps.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll have new, cheaper ones in the future.
And another part of Jim's comment is that blown-in cellulose always settles 1 to 2 inches. That is why we always blow 3 to 4 inches over manufacturer specs so that we can compensate for settling. Good to know. Okay, I think, all right, the last comment, I have to sign off now. Cost for ductless system, 2 outside units and 9 wall packs, $30,000 in Massachusetts is getting a $16,000 state rebate.
Mhm.
Well, if we lived in Massachusetts, we
Mhm.
could do that. That is the very last comment that's in here. Although Angela says I missed her question. I'm sorry. And she left.
Okay.
So I'm sorry I missed it. I didn't mean to do that. Okay.
All right.
Does anybody else have any last words? Then thank you very much, Ernie. Thank you all the people who stayed on all this time. Oh yeah, I'm also sorry to Joanne for not admitting her.
Especially sorry to join.
Because I was watching. I don't know how that happened. It must have been hidden under something else.
I was late, Pat. I was late. That's
Oh, okay. Okay, well, we will be sending out the recording and a copy of the. Oh, anybody that wants to get the copy of the chat right now.
Click the triple dots down at the bottom of chat.
I don't even see the triple dots.
It occurred on mine. Down at the very bottom,
Oh, it's
left
okay.
side bottom.
Yeah, I see it now. It's under the last comment from me.
It says more when you roll over it.
Yes, click that. And it is a button, Save Chat. But you'll get it in email as well.
Okay.
Thank you all for joining us. We hope to see you in future webinars.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.